Welcome to Curtis Stage Tutorials. This tutorial is on a vertical navigation system within Dreamweaver, and we're going to build it in CSS, which is going to make this navigation system go faster in the browser than building one in maybe, let's say, Photoshop and bringing images in. This is going to have rollovers like this within CSS. So let's build this. Let's go to File, New. And I'm going to create a CSS, I'm going to use one of their CSS templates, so I'm going to go to HTML page type. I'm just going to take a one column fixed centered. Let's click create. I'm going to get rid of all of the stuff that's in the content here. I'm just going to hit delete. So I'm left with essentially a container, if you look right over here, a container div with a content div inside that. And we're going to build this inside the content div. So we're going to do it in code view though. I'll flip back and forth to design view, but we're going to build this in code view. So I'm going to go here to code view, and I'm going to go down to my HTML area inside the body tags first. We're going to build the object first, and then we'll apply the CSS to it second. So I'm going to go down in here. I'm going to even just erase this H1 tag, which is a heading tag. So I'm going to get that out of there by hitting delete. And I'm going to build a ID within here, a div ID inside the content. So I'm going to nest it inside content. Here's container, it starts here and it ends here. And here's content, it starts here and it ends right there. So I'm going to build a div inside here. So I'm going to give it a little white space, put my cursor right up underneath the content. And I'm going to do a bracket facing this way with UL. That means an unordered list, and then I'm going to do ID, which is going to create the div, and equals, and then I got to do quotation marks. I'm going to give it a name here. It can be any name that I want. I'm going to name it nav, because it's going to be a navigational menu, and it's got to have quotation marks around it, and then I'm going to do a bracket facing to the left, and that will close the opening tag. So this is the opening tag for the div. And now I'm going to make the closing tag for the div. I'm going to put it down here because we're going to nest a list inside that. So I'm going to go here and put a bracket facing to the right and then a slash. And as soon as I do, notice how it automatically knows that I want to close this UL here, and it puts that right in there. So nice. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a list inside this unordered list. So let's start that in this white space right here, right nested inside the UL. We're going to have an LI, so I'm going to do a bracket facing to the right with an LI, and then bracket facing to the left. That closes that one. And then this is going to be a link, so I've got to put an anchor tag in here. So bracket facing to the right with an A, and then a space. So A means anchor, and then I'm going to do a space and href, and you'll see it. Dreamweaver pops it up right down here in this code helper, href right there, and then it will say equals with quotation marks. Now I could give this a web address, like an HTTP address, which would be an absolute address, or I could give it a relative address, which would be like page2.html, and that would be look for a folder. Look for a file in my directory called page2. I don't have any link right now, so I'm going to put a null link right here, which is a number sign, so that it's just kind of a placeholder for a link. So it'll still look like a link, it'll still act like a link, but it isn't going to go anywhere when I click on it. So once I do that, then I'm going to close the opening tag of the anchor by putting a bracket facing to the left. And now I want to put the actual text that's going to go in the design view on our page. So maybe this is the home page, and notice how it turns black. That means that it's going to show up in the design view on my page itself. Okay, now I want to close the anchor here. So there's the start of the anchor. I've got to close that anchor. So I'm going to do a bracket facing to the right with a slash, and it'll automatically fill in that tag and close it for me. And now I want to close the link right here. So I'm going to have a bracket facing to the right with a slash, and it'll close the link. Perfect. So now I want to highlight this and make a few more. So Command C will copy it, and I go down here and Command V pastes. Everything's the same, but now all I have to do is change my text here. So maybe this is an about page here. and then do it again down here. Command V will paste, and then I do maybe a contact page, and then down here again, Command V, and maybe a links page, something like this. And if I go to design view, I will see essentially a list here with that has anchors on it, so it has the underlines on it, so it knows that it's that they're links. So I'm going to go back to code view. So there we go. So we've got that going on now. We are going to move on to the next step, which would essentially what we want to do is now tell this this list what to look like in CSS. So we're going to move up to the CSS area and we're going to create CSS code. So I want to go right up above in the head tags. You'll notice all the pink and blue is the CSS code area. So I'm going to go just past the last bracket here, which was for a clear float, and I'm going to start making my own CSS styles that will relate to the object down here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start kind of telling this nav what to look like, and so we're going to target it with a CSS style. So I'm going to create some white space here. I'm going to go up here and let's put in the UL number sign, which means a div, which means so we've got an ID here, nav, so no space in there. So UL number sign nav, and then I'm going to do a curly bracket facing to the right. So essentially, right here, I'm starting the code right here, and I'm going to put the declaration between these curly brackets. So I'm going to have an open and close curly bracket, and the declaration will go in here, and all the properties will go in between these two curly brackets of this selector. So the pink part's the selector, and in between the curly brackets is the declaration. So first thing I want to do is margin. So you'll see when I start typing in margin, it comes up right here. So I'm going to go to margin left, and margin dash left with a colon there, and now I can put pixel dimension in here. So let's say like 10px, and I'm going to end that with a semicolon. So this is what all of the code looks like. It's going to be consistent. Essentially, on the left-hand side here, I have the property, and on the right-hand side, I have the value, and both of those two items combined are called the declaration of the selector. All right, I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to do my next one. It's going to be a padding, and so maybe I'll do a padding on the left-hand side. Right now, maybe I'll start off with padding 0 and see what that looks like, and end that with a semicolon. And then the third one in this group, we're going to do a list style type. So list style type. I basically don't want this thing to have any style, so I'm going to say list style type, and you'll see as soon as I do list dash style dash, there's the type, and I'm going to go down in here. If I put an N here, look at how Dreamweaver will go, oh, here's all your stuff starting with N. I'm going to say none, and then semicolon. Okay, so that's it for the first one, and if I go to design view, you'll see that really nothing has changed here, but if I go back to code view and we start adding more stuff, this thing will start kind of coming into focus. Okay, so I'm going to do another selector here. It's going to be almost exactly like the selector, but now I'm going to start talking about the link itself. So I'm going to say UL number sign, that's going to be for the div, nav, and then curly bracket facing to the right, and I don't have to have a space there after the V if I don't want to. Curly bracket facing to the right, curly bracket facing to the left. That's going to make my declaration. In between that is going to be where all the declaration happens. But this is exactly like this one up here. The only difference is now is going to be I'm going to have an A here, which will mean anchor. So essentially I'm going to say any anchor that's in the UL nav, you're going to make it look like the declarations that are going to happen in here. The first one's going to be a display block. We want these things to be in a block display, which means it'll put a box around it. So I'm going to type in display and then colon, and then you'll notice when I put the colon in there, block comes up. And to end that, I want to do a semicolon. So essentially what will happen is, and you'll see that in design view this has changed, it's put boxes around these objects. You'll see them kind of lightly there. And then we're going to tell these more what to look like here in a second. So display block, and then the next one, maybe I'll do a background color. So I'll go to background color, and as soon as I double click that, I can go here, look at how the pop-out comes out. I can say color, and I can make that, let's say, like a kind of a maroon color with a semicolon ending that. And if I go to design view, you can see that my blocks now basically have color in them. So I'll go back to code view. I'm going to hit return. Now I need to give them a width here. So I'm going to do WI, and as soon as I put that in there, D, look at where the width comes down in here. I could type it out. I'm going to width, and I'm going to make this a certain width in pixels, so maybe 150 pixels. So I'm going to tell the block, any anchor that has a block on it, I'm going to give it 150 pixels wide, and then look how my links now have a width now of 150 pixels. Okay, so now I have that essentially, I'm telling this what size to be by making that width there. Okay, I want to get rid of the underlines that are underneath the links. If you look right here, if you look closely, there's underlines underneath those links. So essentially, I want to have no text decoration on anchors. Text decoration would be like underlines. So I'm going to say text dash decoration, and you'll see it pop up right here. And I want to have none. Soon as I put the semicolon there and hit refresh, you'll see my lines have gone away underneath here. So nice. You'll notice that the padding inside this, where the links are, it needs to maybe come off this wall a little bit. So I may create a little padding inside this. So I'm going to click right in here and click a little padding, PA. And as soon as I put that padding left, and maybe I'll put like 5px for pixels with a semicolon. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that my text will come off that wall right there. So I've got a padding off that wall, which is nice. Gives me a little padding. Okay, so we're getting pretty good on this. It's starting to look like links. I want to make my links have color that can stand out a little bit. So I'm going to make the text in here have a certain color. So I'm going to put in, let's say, color for text. All I have to do is write the word color in here, and it's gonna be for any font that I have. So I'm going to do color, colon, and then go pick a color, and I think white would probably be good on this background with a semicolon to end that. And as soon as I click on my screen, look at how my links now have become white. Nice. Okay, so this is pretty good on here. We could add a few more things in here, but what I would like to do is make a hover over state. So when I hover over these things, they change color. So I can make the text change color and the background change color if I wanted to. So let's focus now on the UL number sign nav A, and we're going to make a pseudo class. So down here at the bottom, below this curly bracket, which is this declaration here for that selector, let's do the same thing down here. I'm gonna essentially just copy this right here, Command C, and go down here, and Command V, paste. And now I want to add that pseudo class here, so I'm going to do a colon and then hover for a hover over state. And then same thing, curly brackets facing to the right to open the declaration, curly bracket facing the left to close the declaration, and all the items will go inside those curly brackets. So let's change the background color maybe on this. So I'm going to go to background color. I typed in a B right there to go to background color, and then I go here, and maybe I want to change the background color on hover over to, how about a gray, and then a semicolon for that. And then maybe I change the color of the text on the gray to something else when they hover over it. So I can go to color, and that will for sure talk about text there when I say color. And I can click in here, and on the gray, let's say, well, I'll just make it, how about black? Let's see what that looks like. And then a semicolon. And so let's test this in live view now. If I click up here on Dreamweaver right here where it says live view, I can go and kind of see what this is going to look like. And there, sure enough, when I hover my mouse over the links, the background changes color and the text changes color. So nice. Now, one last thing, if I want to have the text be a certain size and a certain font, I can add that into my links area right here. So I'm going to go back up to the links area and hit return and give me a little bit more space here, and maybe I want to have a certain font right here. So I can say on here, if I want to go into text, or if I want to say font family, let's say that. So if I go to font and I go to font family, as soon as it puts the semicolon there, or it puts a colon there for me, then I can go pick the font family that I want. So let's say Arial. And why is it giving me 3 choices here? Well, if someone doesn't have Arial on their computer, it'll default to Helvetica. Or I could say, skip Arial. I just want it to be Helvetica. I don't want it to be even sans serif. I want it to, because most computers have Helvetica. So as soon as I do that, I click refresh, my font will change to Helvetica, which is nice. So my font family. And if I want to make a font size, I can do that. Now remember, everything that we're doing here within the code, I can also do over here when I double click the rules button right over here. So if I go over to my CSS styles rules and I go to ULNav A, all the stuff that I'm doing right now is in this rules definition box. So if I go to type, and there's my Helvetica, and look, there's my color right there that I'd put, my white. And I could go to font size right here if I wanted to and switch the font size in pixels right there and click apply and look at how it got really small. I can go to 16 and make it bigger. So you can go and do that there and look at how it adds it to the code on the fly right here. Font size 16 pixels. I can even say font weight and say bold and click apply, and there it will go into the CSS. Or I could say, hey, I want it to only be bold. I'm going to cancel this. I only want it to be bold, so I'm going to cut this, Command X, on the hover. So maybe I want the bold to happen over here. So I'm going to add one more here and paste that in there. So font weight bold, and then we go to live view and look, only, let me refresh that. So it's not bold here. Well, it's not doing it the right way. Let me go off. Okay, there it goes. So it's not bold on normal, and as soon as I go over the links, then it becomes bold right there on the rollover state. So we've got, you can change a lot of things with the CSS. So for the most part, you got a basic CSS vertical navigation where you can hover over and make rollovers, and very simple and easy to use and easy to transform. Again, my box is maybe a little bit too big, so I go to my block up here and maybe I make that width 100, so I don't need it that big, and then my block will get smaller. If I get out of design view, and there I go, and I go back to live view, and then my block is smaller, right? And I can just keep adding links in here by going down now back to my HTML area. I can just keep adding links if I wanted to. So let me go back down here, just last thing, and then we're done. But if I go down here and I want to say, oh, I need to add a few more links, it's really easy. I go down here and I say, okay, I want to add another item to the list. Command C and hit return, and Command V, and then give this a name here like other link, I don't know. And you can see that it'll just add it to the list here, which is great. So it's really easy to go modify and add more items to your navigational structure. All right, that's been Curtis Stage tutorial on vertical navigation using CSS and Dreamweaver. Thanks a lot.